friends, welcome back to another very special episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my cave-dwelling, human-eating co-host.
Oh, I don't do that, but my name's Alex Dandino.
Sure. I think he doth protest troglodyte life too much.
You can't even say the word.
Yeah, apparently. But that's been
If anyone's a
very
troglodyte here, it's you.
How dare you? Just looking down on us real American Midwesterners. Well, I did not realize that I would have to be talking about troglodytes so much when we program this month, but it's going to be a recurring theme. So read up, guys. All right. Before we get to that, a little business, guys. It's official. The Film Alchemist are on Patreon. That's right, patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. You can find all of our awesome people over there for as little as $1 a month, guys. You can get in, join our amazing community, meet the amazing patrons we already have. And guys, it's the absolute best way to help the show. Every single dollar helps, I assure you. But it's also the very best way to make sure that this show is exactly what you deserve. As you go up the official Highlander ranking systems, we let you specifically pick the movies you want us to discuss in a Patreon exclusive library. We've got some amazing picks. You also get to help pick the fourth movie we do of every curation. You also get some stocking stuffers. So Christmas, we're letting our patrons pick some amazing extra films they'd like to see to wrap out the year. A gift from us to them. So guys, again, that's patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. It means the world to us for those of you who support us, so thank you. It also means the world to us for those of you who are about to, so thank you as well. The email is filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. The YouTube, if you want to see our beautiful faces and, hear, listen, get a little visual titillation along with some audio titillation. The YouTube, Film Alchemist. Go over there, subscribe. We do some other fun stuff over there, always working on ideas. We're on all the social media that you're on. Please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you find the show. Oh, right. Enough of that business. Let's get down and dirty, but not down and dirty enough, with tonight's film, Bone Tomahawk. Just a metal as hell name. Pretty metal as hell movie. This is a funny movie because this is one of them. My best friend, Sam, was trying to get me to watch this forever. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say I'm allergic to Westerns, but I would say that the Western genre has become a magnet for many things that are not my favorite in movies, right? One of them, very prominently featured in Bone Tomahawk, is the extra 1 hour that every movie decides that I need. Neither here nor there, though, right? So I was like, all right, it's horror, Kurt Russell, oh, Richard Jenkins, all right, Patrick Wilson, yeah. And so I was like, this is the month. I'll do this for Sam. Shouts out, Sam. I got to say, this movie was longer than I wanted, but man, is it chock full of good stuff. I really enjoyed this. This was my first time viewing this film. Alex, had you seen Bone Tomahawk, and opening thoughts?
I had not. My first viewing, definitely heard a lot about it from our friend Slam, as well as just in general. I don't know why this movie just like always comes up for some reason when people are talking about Westerns. I'm also not necessarily allergic to Westerns, but the extra hour always comes from this visual masturbation every director of a Western does, where it's like, ooh, look at the prairie. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, like you're in the West. Thank you for pointing out the desolation. Like, I get it. That's fine.
Which is funny because I'm really into a lot of the samurai era movies that do this a lot. I don't know why.
I think what it is, and this is my take on it, because like in college, I was very much into like older, like I loved older Westerns, like John Ford movies. Like I watched 3:10 to Yuma in a film class, and I was like the original one. I was like, this movie is awesome. Why did I think that they could only just like remake this movie? Like, oh my God, like this original is incredible. Like that kind of shit. I think what it is, and this is why samurai movies work better with this way, is like the movement of the distance in samurai movies, I think adds to the desolation of the characters And I personally don't get any character development out of the verandas we get from Westerns. I already know they're lonely because the West sucks.
You don't like red ass rocks?
There's literally no time. There's no movie that celebrates how awesome the Wild West was. The Wild West was horrible.
Okay, now that's a point, because I believe the only Western we've made it to on this show, unless you count Back to the Future 3, would be The Pale Door, which is another kind of these neo horror Westerns, right? Mm-hmm. Which doesn't really kind of emulate an enormous... This one's much more an emulation of kind of a classic Western.
Yeah.
And so without divulging into just, lawyering up of the Western genre, 'cause someday I know... We're going to have to strap on our old 6-shooters and hit the saddle and do a Western month.
We'll definitely be hitting the feed bag soon for that, for sure.
The feed bag is one thing that doesn't want to cross paths with these banditos, let me tell you. Because you will fucking lose. Unmarked grave. Here's the thing. I think the code of ethics is a really big one, right? This man with the gun thing that Westerns are into. Mm-hmm. It's not always my vibe, and I feel like most of them are kind of shitty people. Okay, so to bring this back, right, I like the samurais better, right? Sword on sword. It's more noble, I feel.
Well,
there is a thing that this movie does that I love. Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I was actually going to say, to your point, though, the reason that you prefer the samurai is because the samurai stories, that the Westerns stole that from the samurai stories.
Well, sure. I mean, it's all stealing, right? Again, it's all just a story.
It's all this melding, but I agree. Like it's not that I hate them. It's the salient point we made, which was just like they're literally an hour too long just because of B-roll. Anyways,
well, I think there's an Americanness to them too, like the bad kind of American ideals that I don't love. That's why Sergio Leone's so great.
Yeah,
because he takes that Western story and puts it through a lens of a non-American. So you get all the good stuff without the kind of like propaganda, like, wasn't it great? No, it was fucking trash.
It was terrible. Bless that Italian.
That is one thing I really liked about the goddamn Italians. No. Where was I? I'm just dealing with another surly Italian trying to steal my American-made product, this pod. But one thing I liked about... How dare you? How dare you,
I keep interrupting you. You have to get to this movie.
No, it's fine. Do your jokes about how I'm a terrible Italian oppressor. That's much better. Okay, but what I liked about this movie, for the 18th time, I like that this movie, it really is one of those films, right? It sets up, this is a Wild West town, and it's called Bright Hope, right? Which I think is one of the things that sprung eternal in the Wild West. We'll just keep moving and everything will be perfect, and it just still hasn't become that. What I like about this movie is, it sets you off as, oh man, this is a cave-eating, monster men. Yeah. And they're going to be the bad guys. I love that this movie opens with two robbers, essentially. I mean, it just starts on a close of a guy getting his throat sliced by the legendary Sid Haig and the less legendary but lovable David Arquette. And
not a fan of Wild West Doofy? Very nice.
I love Doofy. It's more everything else he did, which was not my favorite.
This is Doofy's ancestor.
Dear God.
Dooford.
Yeah. This is what happens before Doofy had the fucking vacuum cleaner of moms. Just a surly bandit out there covered in sand. Nothing to get the sand off. Just a little hot in the saddle.
Oh my God.
Doofy and Sid Haig are over there just massacred. So just a close-up on a throat slice, letting us know exactly what we're in for.
Yeah.
I like the idea, though, that the movie doesn't go an enormous distance in the dehumanizing of the troglodytes, right? It tries, because it's letting us know the point of view that these are godless savages, right?
Yeah.
I think the movie starts off with that scene to let us know that these guys who are just murdering and stealing, but they won't burn a Bible because that's bad luck. They're the honorable Christian folk that deserve to survive this land.
Sure.
And there's that great scene when they kind of tromp into the boneyard, right? This is ours. And I was like, that's, again, a great symbolism for kind of what we did. We kept going west and saying, oh, you guys have lived here for a long time? Nope, that's ours now. Kick some rocks over and start shooting guns.
Right.
So this movie does take that extra step of not kind of propagandizing these Western folk, right? There's a lot of them calling these people horrible monsters, godless savages.
Yeah.
Well, all they do is horrible, godless acts.
But I mean, I think that, and I think that's probably the most. That's like this weird pastiche on the Western genre, in my opinion, because like you find this a lot in modern Westerns. Is that because you have to address the fact that like anyone who came to this country pretty much was a shitbag person for the first, I don't know, 3 centuries we were here. Like anybody who got in our way, we just like pile drive.
I don't know that everyone did, but there was definitely we will take this land from the people who already live there.
The West particularly, like, because again, it goes back to like, I mean, John Wayne, John Ford, who's a great director and anything like that. Like The Searchers is an amazing movie, but John Wayne movies, all these kinds of like old Westerns that literally celebrated like frontier life and like how to like live in the frontier was this like also horrible whitewashing of the entire experience. Like, see, we all get along out here. Not true. So like all of it's interesting.
John
like,
Ford was way more into the white executioner than the white savior.
Yeah, exactly.
He was very into that.
That's what's interesting about modern Westerns, and I think might be because this might be another reason why they don't get made very often now, is because modern Westerns are almost like apologist movies half the time, because they're like, listen, we were total scumbags for this entire period of time, like ruining people's lives. Like, it's pretty much until you meet like the professor, which even the professor is like one of those characters where you're like, is this character here just to justify like why no one's sort of basically a racist through most of the movie?
Well, I think he's there to specifically show the kind of things that happen, right? Which is we're here so you can bend and acquiesce and wear the, suits that we're putting upon you.
Right.
And talk shit about the troglodytes, or, you're going to be hunted down like the troglodytes. So I think there is I think the Wild West genre too is hard because it does have to walk this line of, it's made for people that love the idea of walking out into their vast expanse, seeing a horse coming and being like, get my gun, 50-50 chance I'm murdering over coffee.
Right, exactly.
Right? So there's a lot of that crowd that loves the idea.
Which happens a lot in this movie.
Yeah, Westerns are kind of the opposite of Castaway, right? Where instead of Castaway's a movie about, I need to get off this fucking island, Westerns are, you get off my island or I will shoot you off of it, and I like it here and I don't want to leave, right? And so I think but here's like another thing that always sticks in my craw with Westerns. And if I was to ever start my website and book series that I told you about, 90minutesorless.com, which I'm assuming is probably a pornographic site. I'm not going to Google it.
I think you're thinking 90secondsorless.com, but yeah, go ahead.
Anywho, yeah, neither way, don't Google any of these things. This is all just like whiteboard brainstorming sesh. But I wanted to make a thing where, what if I went through and had my army of fucking technology boys making 90-minute edits of films, right? And so I would go through, and as the man who so hates movies over 90 minutes, I would be the deciding factor of what gets chopped. I would start with the foreman fucking his wife with a broken leg, because I'm not sure that adds anything except for, again, to the guys who are like the 50-50 coffee shooters. And it's like, all right. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, she's way too attractive to be in the Wild West. Why is she so clean? Why are they both liking this so much?
This is another thing that's really hard to gauge.
Right? Do you ever watch Westerns and old movies? Like, I know The Last Duel just came out, and it's all about, a love triangle.
Huh?
It makes me mad in those old movies when people are trying to get frisky, and they're not all making the face or reacting to the smells. Yeah. Did you see, this is one of those movies, Bone Tomahawk, where you can just smell the amount of clothes these people are wearing. And I hate it. I fucking hate it. They're wearing 4-piece suits in the desert. There's no way anyone's enjoying having sex with you. The fact that we as a species powered through the stench of those eras to produce is a miracle in and of itself.
I mean, I agree with the logic you're pointing out here. However, like, would you want to stop in the middle of a movie to like point out, like, oh, you reek, but I'm just going to deal with this?
Well, no, I mean, okay, because we've all been in scenarios where you have to make decisions, right?
Like, is there a scene?
Is Patrick Wilson going to not have sex with his wife?
A scene
no,
in the movie?
But could we be honest? And when he pulls out his little roofing ladder, right?
Right.
And she just goes, okay. Well, you know what I mean? Like a pause. Like in a script, right? This is an ellipses, the 3 dots. I love you. ... you.
So
if you're gonna make the movie an hour too long, anyways, address
you're
the
suggesting
smells.
suggesting we address the fact that everyone reeks in the West, correct?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So when we make Film Alchemist Presents the best Western ever made,
yes,
the entire movie is basically just going to be 90 minutes of people like basically dry heaving and gagging. Like
so
the top of the script,
our Western for Film
the top
Alchemist
of the script,
Studio.
The notes for the top of the script for the studio notes, like everyone in this movie smells like spoiled fruit.
If you get a copy of our script, if you are lucky enough to produce this and hand us money, we're going to personally just rub our stinky bodies on every single page. You will be unable to escape it. We're making a body horror Western.
Just a
and it's not like it's not like a Cronenberg like bodies melting. It's just like a dude.
Yeah, we're gonna rub like it's just our 3-day-old like chasing our kids around like not showered body like you know you're on one of those like 72-hour runs where you just like you're not sleeping properly and that kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense. That's the pitch. Come and get it, Hollywood.
I didn't know this was going to turn into this long of a bit. It's very much like Bone Tomahawk. We're just sitting here exploring. But
you're not wrong. But that is a big thing of this movie.
It needs to be addressed in more Westerns. It makes me mad. I hate it in Viking movies. Although Vikings, like, they seem a little more down to just kind of, drive the ship in. I think it needs to be addressed that the human body is disgusting. And I think it needs to be addressed as a miracle of nature, and maybe the only point of evidence that God truly exists is that our species powered through before showers and perfumes.
Well, this also goes to that like concept of like whenever people die in movies, they never evacuate their bowels. It's actually that actually upsets me more than anything.
All right, I don't know if I need that. That's the line I won't cross. I want actual body. Are you fucking kidding?
So people who don't bathe and don't wipe properly having sex on camera, that's like.
Yes, that's important. Scatological playtime, not important.
But not addressing the fact of how actual biology and physiology works, that's not going to work.
Maybe I'm saying that they already smelled bad enough that the bowel evacuating is just a redundancy. We don't need the scene. Okay, this has gotten off the tracks. Did
you watch the movie?
This is not an important element of the story. It was something that stuck in my craw, and now we've done a lot of time on it. Back to the film. What a cast! What a cast! Just delightfully powerful cast.
Plus that guy from Lost.
There was definitely a bit of one of these things is not as awarded as the others. He probably has all these like Emmys, whatever that is. His consolation prize was he gets to play I'm a fuck your wife guy in the movie, which is cool.
His consolation prize is he gets to play foot soldier number 3 in World War Z. Go ahead.
That's right. I love this cast. And I was actually messaging you during the film. I love Kurt Russell very dearly.
Mm-hmm.
This felt very much like a Kurt Russell on Cruise Control movie. He's just like, I've still got the wild beard and mustache, which is amazing. I got the long hair. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell is fine in this movie. He's better than fine. Kurt Russell's phoning it in performance is better than almost everyone else's performance. Fine.
Except
who didn't phone it in?
Richard Jenkins?
Richard fucking Jenkins. That guy is a god amongst men.
Richard Jenkins is my all-time favorite Who's That Guy actor. Like, he's in everything. He does everything. There's never a movie that he's not 1,000% firing on all cylinders, and he does comedy. Like, he's incredible in Step Brothers. He should not have, like, he sells that part. Like, there's no other actor who could make that work the way he makes it work. And then he does stuff like The Visitor. I mean, he's just in every, like, The Shape of Water. He's incredible in everything. He is so far out in front in this movie. Like, and yeah, I agree. Kurt Russell on Cruise Control is great. Kurt Russell, but whatever piston Richard Jenkins is firing on, whatever, like, it's like the extra leader in a car. It's like a V6 versus a V8. Like,
now we're doing car guy bits, huh? We're gonna be.
I don't know if you know
boys
this,
again.
but I am incredibly manly. I like westerns and I like cars.
We're
so.
super manly, as we just did 15 minutes on our disgusting body odor thing.
But it is like one of those. He's honestly just like he's on another level. He's incredible.
But
the
this
entire
is
time.
Shape of Water is probably my favorite Richard. I mean, I just love that movie unabashedly. But it kind of hit all the things he's best at. This performance does that as well. He is this amazing comedic foil in just a brutal fucking film. Where we talked about this a lot. It's like, I don't think movies need comedy to be fun.
No.
This movie specifically needed a little fucking humanity in it. And Richard Jenkins is this beautiful mix of the mourning widow who still finds optimism all the time. The way he speaks and delivers, it's the same way that his character Chicory is just trying to give the best of himself in the hope that it'll make the world better.
Yeah.
Is exactly the way I feel Richard Jenkins always is his best, right? Is he is this kind of put upon, but still the bright light in the dark room guy.
Yeah.
And he is amazing. And his repartee with every character gets a great Richard Jenkins. Like, so his repartee is the opinion of the assistant deputy, right? That shit with Kurt Russell and their back and forth is fucking beautiful.
They're incredible.
And he's great with Patrick Wilson, right? Like trying to, urge him on, and it's going to be okay. We'll get her. And even him trying to kind of educate the less savory white suited cowboy. Right? He's trying very hard. I mean, he just has these wonderful lines, and it pays off. I mean, he had me like in tears 3 times in this film, which is not a film that feels like you're going to cry. But when we saw him going to visit his wife's grave, and he just said, there's some good people out there that are in trouble, and I'm going to give them the best that I can. I'm going to do for them what I can. And I was like, what a line that this old man knows that he doesn't really have as much to give as he wants. And he knows that he's probably not coming back. But if he can do a good deed, or if he can help save this man that he really, truly appreciates, this sheriff. I just thought it was beautiful, man. Like, what a fucking moment.
Yeah. He's just, like, even the, like, downtime stuff, like that scene, the scene where he's, where the white-suited Matthew Fox is rolling out around their campfire, rolling out the bells. Mm-hmm. He has that great bit where he's talking about like smart people don't get married. It's like a whole. It's funny, and it also is just like it's the thing that Richard Jenkins does better than like any other actor, which is this like funny yet broken-hearted beat. Like, it's the only way I can describe it is like every single thing he says, even if it's funny, is soaked with this sort of just like, and not just because of this movie, but just because he understands how to get into this character so well. It's just soaked with this sort of sadness. Like for the best reasons too for the movie. It's just he's just unbelievable. Again, it's not to say that anyone, like, I will say this. Sean Young shows up in this movie. She has a very like brief part as like the mayor's wife or whatever. Not firing on all cylinders.
They could have given her more to do.
They could have, but they won't because she's honestly wasn't very good. But that's like,
shots fired for your 30 seconds of my life, Sean Young.
Sorry, Sean Young. No, but like it is interesting because you do see like what you like that scene in the bar, like that scene where they start talking about what's going on and like actually like setting up the plot for the rest of the movie is so like it is just this sort of like everybody's playing off each other, but holy shit, dude, like again Richard Jenkins is just it's like he's the only one who's like actually understanding he's in the scene, so and understanding what his character's doing in the scene. It's just this whole the levels are so fascinating, particularly there because everyone in the cast is in that bit except for the troglodytes. So like the entire cast is playing off everyone. So you're seeing so much of what everyone's bringing in for this performance for this movie. And like Richard Jenkins just shines so hard throughout. Yeah. And I love Patrick Wilson. Like, I think he's a fantastic actor. very rarely, like I think he's one of the really underrated actors. Like he gets great, he does great work and he gets good jobs and everything like that. But
He's
honestly,
essentially just Tom Hanks without trophies.
yeah, I mean, he's incredible, and yeah, I want him to win all the awards. He's just, he's just a guy who's kind of like Tom Hanks, but not Tom Hanks.
But I think to your
Not
point,
a bad
though,
thing.
he gets stuck with the I constantly must be screaming in agony character.
Yeah, I still don't understand why they didn't just like shoot him at the top of the movie because he was like, "I'm going," and like blow your brains out
because he has a Bible somewhere. Yeah, so he's okay. But it's funny because Richard Jenkins and Kurt Russell by the end of the film feel truly lived in with their characters, right? In almost a way that no one else is. I would even say not that they're able to get to, but they're not allowed to get to by how the movie plays.
Right.
Because everyone else has something that is kind of keeping them in a movie character-y kind of place. Mm-hmm. But those two, when we get to the end of the sheriff and Jenkins, right? And he's got this fucking flask in him. I mean, it's fucking horrendous.
Dude.
But he just says, say goodbye to my wife for me, and I'll say hello to yours. When Kurt Russell said that, it just really felt like two old friends.
Yeah.
Saying thanks for the road traveled, man. And I just was broken down. Killed me.
I think this is the thing that's interesting about the movie is, to be honest with you, and I know it fits a certain pillar of the horror genre, but there's just not a lot about it that felt like classic horror. It felt like my kind of horror movie. Like I love these kinds of movies, particularly not Westerns necessarily, but these kinds of movies that play more with, not the psychology of like, oh, who's the worst person ever? Oh, it's clearly man, because we already know that. But really it's about like this journey amongst people who are like trying to figure out if they can actually be friends, countrymen, like these kinds of people who like constantly have to, like, when you put people in like this powder keg situation. And look, the brutality in this movie is wow. Like there is stuff that I have not seen. That hip flask thing was bar none one of the grossest things I've ever seen in a movie. And we've watched a lot of shit. That was so disgusting. Like I don't like and look, again, like we've fucking, you and I have both watched Hellraiser. Like I've seen weird shit, and that was honestly the grossest thing I've seen.
That's
in a movie.
Just so sexy that it's okay. You know what I mean? It's one of those kind of movies.
I mean, that is definitely for your ultimate pleasure, but like that is like the craziest shit. Is just
you're ever just like, oh man, what if our wife brings home just like a State Farm guy and just cracks his head open, and then we're just like covered in the blood? No, I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
Jesus, that's very Midwestern. My God.
Yeah, I know. The Midwestern's gone Hellraiser, and it's great. It's great. Yeah, we're turning the. But no, what I'm saying to the point is, it's funny that in a movie like this that has such extreme violence, right? They did the leg split, right? Just chopping the guy down the middle like cattle, right? Which is something you usually only see in like kind of tongue-in-cheek, goofy-ass horror movies like Victor Crowley. Like the Crowley series and Hatchet series, they do stuff like that 15 times a movie. But it's so goofy, you're like, that's what I'm here for, right? Practical effects, real.
Right.
That felt just gross and real and dehumanizing. And that they scalped him. I mean, there's a lot of horrendous, gross. I mean, even just every time they are about to show Patrick Wilson's leg, you're like, this is the worst, and I hate it.
Every time the leg thing comes up, like the bone cracking in this movie made me physically ill.
But like, I would say this is the weird thing, right? As graphic and memorable as it is probably the least interesting thing in the movie to me.
Yes.
Right? What I became fascinated with this film, and I agree with you, it's not really, I wouldn't call it traditional horror. I think trying to like fit every movie into a genre is kind of the last bastion of a coward, right? It feels like a very Twitter thing where you can just discount someone just by like, oh, that's not really a horror film. Well, it scared the fuck out of me, man, so suck it. You know? I think what this one does really well, right? And I think it's exemplified in the scene when, I think his name was Ramiro.
Who?
So Ramiro and his friend come through in the night, right? And they're like, we were about to announce ourselves. They pop up with their guns.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the two Hispanic guys, right? And they're like, we're going to, hey, we're just here. We're cool. The sheriff is trying to get some deets, right?
Right.
Boom, boom. Matthew Fox fucking lays him low, right?
Right.
in that moment, I was like, this movie is pretty crystal clear on what it's presenting us, right? That they are here to show us the disgusting bone tomahawking, right? And that's a really big selling point of this film. But for giving them that extra 45 minutes that they probably didn't all the way earn. They're like, we are going to give you something to chew on. And it struck me as how funny it is that these guys are on a noble hero's quest, right? To go hunt down and save these people from savages, right? That killed, unjustified killing of, the stable guy, the sheriff. They kidnapped, Doofy. He's dead somewhere. And so that's their quest, right? Is that these people have killed and taken life. So they are savages and we must go hunt them down. Also, just the arrogance that, like, an old guy, a broken leg guy, and two other guys are going to go just have at a tribe. And they didn't come prepared. It shows you the absolute arrogance and disregard they have for anyone else. But when they shot those two fellas approaching the camp, right? And the movie tries later to be like, oh, someone did steal their horses, so maybe they made the right decision. I think Kurt Russell even said, I don't know how that would have played out.
Yeah.
But I was like, in the moment, you made that choice. You are no different than the troglodytes that you were trying to villainize and have at. And even right after that, when Matthew Fox has to shoot his own horse, and it looks so much more difficult for him than when he shot two human beings but a frame ago. I just thought that was really lovely, right? That's kind of the idea of people trying to, just because they wear fancy suits in the heat so they just get extra stank on them that their wives ignore. That they get to be as monstrous as they want and feel good about themselves. I thought that was really nice, to kind of sit and think with that. When Richard Jenkins like, you shouldn't have shot those fellas, right? Like, you shouldn't have done that. And he said, hey, man, that's how it is out here. Eventually, we're all going to get got, right? That kind of thing. Our numbers all come and due. It's a really nice stop and pause. And this is the character at the bars boasting about how he's killed the most Native Americans of anyone.
Right.
And there's an irony in them not realizing how monstrous their Bright Hope base level society is.
Right. Well, and then like the professor's like, he says something to the effect of like, well, it's quite a boast. And he's like, it's not a boast. It's just facts.
Yeah.
Like,
that's an ugly boast. Yeah.
That's what it is. It's an ugly boast. It's like, it's not a boast. It's a fact. And
my Florida relatives still say that. It's like a weird Southern thing. Like, that's ugly. Right. If you call it, like, if you're like sitting at a table and it's like, you idiot. Oh, I don't like that ugly language. That's like a weird thing they do.
But Matthew Fox's character, like, first off, I don't understand anyone who would wear white throughout the Wild West. Like, you're just asking to have to clean your clothes like every 5 minutes. But either way,
from all the spillage. That is a constant vacancy sign, right? That's what that is. Come get some. Mr. Fuck Your Wife is here. That's what that white suit is, yeah.
It's this, and that's really kind of why he's wearing white, I think. It's just the contrast. Like, the landscape is so, I think that's the kind of crazy thing.
He does seem like a pretty shitty killer. He does, boom, he shoots that wolf, and he shoots the two Hispanic guys. He seems not tactically brilliant when they approach the troglodyte cave. Are we 100% sure that we believe his boast? Because it seems like Chicory wasn't buying it.
I don't think so.
Because he says, I killed 116
not a chance.
people, and he was like, really?
I think it's the whole point of the character. Like, you look at this guy, he's such a facade of this, like, it's this gag that, like, I go back to, like, the classic kind of Western stuff, and, like, actually it's kind of funny because it reminded me of the way, like, kind of, it's like the superficial version of Doc Holliday in Tombstone, where it's like this, like, sort of dandy type guy who shows up to town. He's got, white suit, nice mustache, just like walking through being like, oh man, I will just slay all poos in this town.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I've also killed a lot of Indians. And you're like,
yeah,
it sounds like bullshit. Like, it's one of those things you look at a character like that and you're like, I know, like, they're trying to justify some form of valor by the time he, like, gets got, but there is none.
Right.
Because he's clearly a liar.
Too, is when he's like, I just want a cigar. Give me a stick of dynamite.
Yeah.
I'll handle it, right? And I believe his exact line is, I'm far too vain to be a cripple.
Right. Which is another reason I think he's full of shit.
Brilliant. Like, Matthew Fox played the shit out of this moment.
Yeah.
So he gets his cigar, they light it, and he's smoking it, right? The moment Chicory and the sheriff leave, you see that whole tough guy facade just crumbling. He's like,
Gone.
he's like starting to like break down into like weeping.
Totally.
And then he's like, oh, wait, just in case they look back, I want them to remember that I'm the badass cigar smoking dynamite guy. This movie also just totally ignores the rules of Chekhov's 6 sticks of dynamite. Like, why did we mention that? And there just wasn't dynamiting galore? Neither here nor there. But I thought that was a lovely concept, right? Of people trying to decide who are monsters. And I thought this movie, and especially Western movies, like I saw that the remake of, what was it, Magnificent Seven or whatever, that Chris Pratt. That feels like one of those like kind of cartoony superhero kind of Western guys where, yeah, we're all good. Pew, 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 pew. Wasn't this great? Pew, pew, pew. You like Halo and Fortnite? Pew, pew, pew. That's what the Wild West was like. And I was like, yeah. All right, sure. And I don't always love that. I like that this movie, and it is a movie that's just constantly getting dirty, right? Like this is a dirty-handed movie, even though the film doesn't look lived in enough all the time.
Right.
I like that they went there and that they actually spent time addressing it. I thought it meant a lot to me.
I don't disagree. I think it's just there's a lot to love about this movie that's not. There's just a lot to love about the movie in general. I think that it has, for being a Western, and I think that that's like the thing that is most prevalent for me when movies like this come out is how hard are they going to go into this like Western vibe? And it's not just like the length of a movie or anything like that. What it really is about is the vibe it puts off. Like for me, like James Mangold's remake of 3:10 to Yuma is probably like one of the gold standards for modern Western movies. Like they do a really good job of incorporating like modern filmmaking and like the classic Western vibes because you cast like 2 fantastic actors and you just let them roll. You let them roll in this environment, let them see, and let's kind of see what happens, you know? So you have that, to me, that's like one of those great Westerns. And then you also have great side characters. Bone Tomahawk does almost the exact same thing with Kurt Russell and Richard Jenkins. And then you have Patrick Wilson, Matthew Fox. You have these great you have great side characters that do wonderful like character bits. And I think that to me is what makes this movie, again, like I get that it has horror tropes, but it's just, I don't know. It's weird. It doesn't have a genre. Like it's a movie. That's it.
Most
like it's a movie.
Don't.
It's a movie that does it's a movie that does exactly what it sets out to do. It tells a story about people that are trying to do the honorable thing in a dishonorable world with dishonorable people.
Yeah, and I think they did a great job of that too when we get to the actual troglodyte cave, right? We do see a couple horrendous acts, but it's not
really
honestly,
gross.
It's not as much as you would expect from the movie we've watched. You kind of think it's going to be this splatterhouse ending. And I guess you could argue it's pretty fucking gross, right? There's some nasty shit, right?
There's some gnarly stuff.
Foot chopped in half.
Foot get chopped off. A head get hacked off. I wasn't prepared for when they cut the hip, the thing that precedes the hip flask getting stuck in his abdomen is like them cutting him with the bone tomahawk. I was not prepared for that and thought that was pretty fucking gross. Like that was like, I was like, that is one of the grosser things I've seen in movies.
Right, but you would think the movie's going to start going more of like a Hostile route, right? Like, and this is going to be the real payoff. The real payoff of that jail cell is exactly what we've been talking about, right? It's, we'll avenge you. These men deserve to die, right? Even though it's, again, the irony of them not understanding, right? These savages, we're going to get them. The cavalry's coming to fucking slaughter you all, right? It's the wife in the cell saying, frontier life is only difficult because of the idiots, right? It's not the elements, it's the idiots. You're like, what a fucking payoff. And then there's the fucking, oh my God, when that was Richard Jenkins' third thing that made me cry when he talked about the flea circus. And he's like, I just want to believe that flea circus was real. I wanted to believe that them fleas were that talented.
Yep.
And she just gave him one, and he like literally had a moment of like, I knew it, yeah. And I was like, fuck yeah, man. So it's funny, in the movie Bone Tomahawk with the gnarly violence, that's my payoff. And I think that, to me, is the elevating point, right? Is that Kurt Russell, that line about the wives is just, that's an all-timer moment.
Yeah.
And then you have kind of the dumbness of Patrick Wilson crawling in as if these men aren't amazing expert hunters. That they can he can just blow the throat whistle that he cuts out of the guy very graphically.
Yeah.
And they're like, nothing weird about that. I better run at him on this wide open path. Right? Like the scene when he shoots the two of them, I was like, that might be the worst choreography of people getting shot I've ever seen.
Yeah. It ends in this really kind of like, it's like you're saying, like to me, the payoff in every aspect of this movie is an emotional thing. Like there's nothing about the action is brutal. But like there's nothing about the action that makes me think like, oh yeah, like the way Hostel works, you know? That's not how this movie's framed, and that's not how this movie works. Like for me, it is all about the emotional payoff, particularly of Richard Jenkins' character. I think you always just are inclined to follow someone who has nothing left to lose, but has seen tragedy and therefore nothing left to lose. Like it's almost about like them finding a reason to be the best version of themselves.
To that point, right? It's the person who's already suffered so much,
right,
and still is trying to make the world a better place. That's a character you can't help but love.
Agreed.
And you could kind of say maybe even the sheriff's doing that. I will say the one emotional payoff that I was wanting that we didn't get, Patrick Wilson brought the letter to her. He never read the letter to her, man. I was like, fuck. Because he had to, walk out of there. I was like, read the fucking letter to her, man. Or more importantly,
I thought that's
write
how
a new letter
the movie was going to end. I thought the movie was going to end like with a voiceover of the letter being read.
Honestly, I kind of like the idea because, again, it kind of plays on this myth of the West, right? We just hear gunshots. We don't know anything that happened. And Richard Jenkins just assuming the sheriff did it. And they just kind of walk off, man. Their shit will be fine. Yeah. And they've just left this cave just decimated. They did hang one of the weirdest things on the scoreboard at the very end to make sure that we weren't Team Troglodyte, which is the kind of X-Files home episode women, pregnant women that are just sharing like this very small rocky table with bones sticking out of their eyes and pregnant. That was one of those I kind of had to pause the film and be like, what per se am I looking at? What the fuck is going on? So that's just like a, hey, in case you're still thinking maybe cowboys aren't always heroic, look at this. This will turn your stomach. I thought that was a funny move.
Yeah, I think they had turned our stomachs so much with how these guys actually were. They're like, okay, we gotta find a villain in this movie somehow. Like, got it. Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, not that I was like leaping
also a little
under
racist, but sure, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not leaping under anyone's like wing of protection in this film. Like I'd hang out with Chicory and play checkers.
Yeah.
Maybe the really super lovely and not dirty at all lady who's just a medical genius, she's pretty cool too. Almost everyone else, questionable.
I'll hang with Sean Young.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. She seems like she would be into the nipple clamping thing we were talking about earlier, the State Farm suckering.
Probably smells like spoiled fruit. It's fine.
Yeah. And then the mayor can hold the camera, right? And then we make Bone Hellraiser. Yeah, that's the sequel we're making, right? At Film Alchemist Studios, right after we do the smelly body Western horror. Yep. But what I will say is that I thought this movie was going to be more of a kind of torture porn graphic display of
was set
practical
up that way.
wizardry. I found an enormous amount of heart and brain in this film that I did not expect, and honestly was the life raft I clung to as it went. Not that I needed a life raft. It's a very well-made film. Again, there's a lot of repeating the kind of soliloquies. We could have made this a really strong, like a fucking razor-sharp thrown Bone Tomahawk.
Just a real tight 89 minutes, but, you know.
I'll give you 95. But that neither here nor there. It's a fantastic film. And I was really glad to add it to our list for the Pod Serves Man Month. That's it for Bone Tomahawk. That's not it. We've got more courses of man coming. We're still cannibals for the rest of the month of November. If you're on the Discord, you still have a chance to vote. We're not closing voting yet on your last pick. Ravenous is way out ahead, so it's going to be hard to beat. But get your votes in. Get your patron selections in. Guys, again, that's patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. It's the best way to help the show. We appreciate it so much. Tell your friends. Tell everyone you know to come on over to the party. Guys, the email is filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. The YouTube is Film Alchemist. We're on all the socials you're on. We appreciate ratings and reviews wherever you find the pod. More than anything, guys, we appreciate your time. We hope you enjoyed Bone Tomahawk as much as we did. Until next time, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino.